YouTube says it has had enough of vaccine misinformation on its site.
And false stories from phony sites to run circles around major news outlets.
Many people don't know the difference between something real and something created to deceive them.
Open your eyes.
If you've ever had this feeling that something was terribly wrong with the world that we live in, but you couldn't figure out just what it was, then you've come to the right place. Secret societies, mystery religions, and the Illuminati have been controlling our reality since the beginning of time. But not anymore, because there is an awakening happening, and you are about to become a part of it. Wake up, because this is a call for an uprising.
Caught on camera, new video this morning showing the moments before and after a shooting along the Seattle waterfront. Take a look here. This happened on July 31st around 4 p.m. Seattle police say the suspect, 32-year-old Gregory Tim, is charged with first-degree assault. They say that Tim approached the victim and grabbed a military patch from him. The victim accused Tim of stolen valor and pulled out a knife. And that's when police say Tim grabbed a gun and shot the victim in the chest.
Show me your ID. Pull a fucking gun on me. Pull a fucking gun on me.
Now, the victim was taken to the hospital and is expected to be okay. Tim is in jail on $750,000 bail. He's expected back in court next Monday, August 18th.
This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. I was working on a couple of different videos, but I had to stop in my tracks when I saw a subscriber post this video by the name of Ben10 on the website, and I needed to check it out for myself. And there are psyops, there are insane psyops, and there are psyops that are so bad that we don't actually see them make the national news, but they probably had the goal of getting something like this on the national news, but it looks so bizarre, it looks so fake that it just had to remain in the Seattle news market until, of course, other people found the story and started talking about it. And that's what I'm going to do right here. So I'm going to show you the raw, unedited footage that was filmed of a man taking his time, stepping backwards, firing a shot into a black man who is in a wheelchair. And there are tons of things to look at, including the witnesses who are smiling ear to ear, who are standing next to somebody who's opening fire on the waterfront in Seattle. We have people who are filming this and not even moving while they're watching somebody get shot. We have the victim using his phone to send text messages when he's supposedly shot in the chest, and he's an elderly man. So there's a lot of things to look at here. So let's start with how the alt-right media is covering this, because the alt-right media is actually talking about it, but they're talking about it as if it's real. We have this channel here saying liberal gunman fires at Navy veteran in Seattle street. So identifying him as a liberal, identifying the man who was shot as a conservative, as an ex-military man. And this is obviously going to be something that we see more and more of, because when you look at these stories and you look at these alt-right media people talking about these stories as if they're real, when they're not, they're manufactured. As I'll show you, when you actually look at the footage, you will agree. You will look at it and say there's no way that that can be actual real footage. It looks completely choreographed, including the shooter standing there posing while he's shooting the guy and then yelling everything's all right. So all the people around him who are running around smiling, looking directly into the camera lens as if we were producing a C-level movie. But this is worse. This is a D to F level production. So the first thing we have to look at when we see the alt-right media covering this and talking about this and saying it's a liberal guy in a liberal city shooting a conservative is what? The narrative. What is the agenda behind it? Well, we now see, with everything going on with the National Guard being called in by Donald Trump, that a lot of these liberal cities are going to be infiltrated by the federal government. They're going to send in the National Guard. They're going to pretend that it's not martial law, and the federal government's going to take control of the police like we just saw in D.C. Seattle, Washington is another place that's a cesspool that is filled with a lot of liberal people where a lot of crime is allowed to occur. We know Oregon's pretty bad. California's bad. The whole West Coast over there, they openly allow people, to shoot up in the streets. We obviously see a lot of the stuff going on in D.C. with the homeless encampments, a lot of those in Washington, Oregon, and California as well. So this agenda is clearly going to focus in on, one, you have a liberal. They're just automatically, when they see the story, it's a liberal guy. It's got to be a liberal guy. Right? Well, how do we know it's a liberal? Well, coincidentally, the man in the wheelchair who was shot by a man who rammed a Trump tent in Jacksonville and got arrested in 2020. So we already have this information about the shooter, that he's anti-Trump. Somehow they know that this guy ran over a tent. I guess he was arrested for it in Jacksonville in 2020. So that's the main story out there. So we can identify the man as a non-Trumper, an anti-Trumper, a Democrat who shot a conservative who claimed self-defense. So this is part of the newest National Guard agenda that we're going to see. We're going to see a lot of fake false flags and psyops like this. This is completely staged, completely fake in a lot of these cities, so that they have a reason to bring in the National Guard. Now, I'm going to play for you the raw footage. Try not to laugh, but watch it. Watch it multiple times if you need to. See how fake this is for yourself. Watch how the shooter stands there, holds his pose. Watch as the people run by. Watch as he yells out loud to everybody around that everything's all right. This is incredible, folks. This, they're pretending, is actual real news. So that is as fake as it gets, and we'll break down all the stuff in that quick little, raw footage that we saw momentarily. But you got to remember that the problem that we're dealing with now is that the alt-right media, who plays into the conservatives and plays into the Christians, views these things as real stories, as if these aren't scripted and simulated. They view this as this actually occurred, and they get everybody all worked up. Oh, this liberal, we got to get the National Guard there. And you see how this is going to spread. We'll see one in California where a Democrat goes after a Republican in California. And oh my goodness, we're allowing them to run amok in these Dem cities because these Dem governors and these Dem mayors, they're all allowing criminals to run amok and do whatever they want. We need to bring in the National Guard. We need to clean up the swamp. We need to drain the swamp, so to speak. That's the narrative the alt-right media is putting out there. They're all pushing for martial law. They're all calling on the National Guard to be deployed in New York, Chicago, California, Washington State, Oregon, you name it. If it's a state that votes Democrat, and it's a state we've seen on the news where crime's running amok, the conservatives are calling for the National Guard to be sent there. So we're going to see stories just like this, as fake as they seem. But the problem is that the alt-right media is going to report on this to their subscribers as if it's actually real. You see, they don't get into their heads the actual truth, that the news is a simulation. Okay, it blurs the lines of reality because you're watching this stuff thinking that these events really occur, and they make you emotionally react one way or the other. This is how they play with everybody. They make you think that these simulated events are actually real, so you get angry and you want something. And what do you want? You want the National Guard. And that's how we have conservatives in 2025 calling on the National Guard, calling on martial law, calling on more surveillance, calling on biometrics because of the border, because they're under mind control, and they believe that these stories are real. And the people keeping them trapped in that hive mind is the alt-right media. So let's start with this. Here's a shot of the guy standing there in front of the man in the wheelchair, the former veteran. And this is all, the narrative around this is funny too. It's about a stolen valor. He's claiming that the guy didn't prove that he was claiming he was in the military, but he wasn't really in the military. The guy in the wheelchair claimed to be a military veteran, and the liberal guy said he wanted to see him. He wanted proof that he was actually a veteran. I mean, so you shoot somebody over it, right? Oh! I mean, this is how bad the psyops are getting, that people actually think that this is real, that this guy is willing to go to jail for the rest of his life. He only shot him once, not twice. He stood there and watched. Nobody jumped the guy and stopped the guy. And he's willing to go to jail the rest of his life because this guy who is in the wheelchair is pretending to be a military soldier, a veteran, when he wasn't. I mean, people believe this, right? And we know people believe everything they see in the news because still we have people who believe Sandy Hook was an actual event, that they weren't using AI for a lot of the imagery during Sandy Hook. And we saw, obviously, the psyops that came after that with Alex Jones and everything else that proved how fake it was because, of course, they don't want you to be able to question the news. That was the whole point of the Alex Jones trial. So you had the man standing there holding his gun, almost like he was waiting for the director to yell, cut, but we didn't hear the director yell, cut, did we? Then we get, after the gunshot is fired, how about these guys? I mean, are these guys, what does this look like to you? Does it look like they're, running into a concert? They're running, to get on the, water slide somewhere at an amusement park. They're running to get a photograph of their favorite celebrity. That's what it looks like, something along those lines, because they got smiles ear to ear. Now, if somebody shot a gun near you, I bet it's pretty rare for most of us, right? Like to ever be out in public and have somebody at a mall shoot a gun, right? Because it doesn't really actually happen. But just imagine you were at Starbucks and you were outside having a mochaccino and you heard a gun go off and you saw the guy holding his stance there with the gun held out. It's not like you just heard a bang and you said, well, maybe it's not a gunshot. Maybe it was a hammer from somewhere else. The man is standing there posing, holding his gun out. So it's very clear that they're all seeing this man holding the gun. And these people are smiling. They think it's a video game, right? They didn't even get the guy. I mean, look at the ear-to-ear smile on the guy's face, right? The guy pulls it out of his book bag. Nobody tries to apprehend him, which I guess wouldn't shock me in this world because we live in such a world of weak people. They would think, well, if I attack the guy shooting the gun, I might get assault. And they're right. They probably would. Don't you dare interrupt their fake, psychological operation that they're committing, right? So these guys are smiling ear to ear as they pass the camera. You even get this one guy who stops and looks directly into the camera lens, right? We had multiple people who were filming this. We had somebody I showed you with an arrow before who was standing there filming this, right? He's filming this event. We have another person standing there filming this. Why is this guy who's filming not alarmed at all? He doesn't feel like maybe he'll get shot since he is filming this and the guy doesn't have a mask on. The guy isn't trying to hide his identity. So if I was filming this just randomly, right? It's not like they're filming the sea. They're at the waterfront. They're not filming the boats out there. They're filming the Starbucks. They're filming this fake altercation because naturally the sheeple's response is always to get their phones out whenever something happens and film it, which is just, zombie nation that we're living in now, right? But you would think that a zombie, when they had their phone out and saw somebody shoot a gun, would likely run too. But this guy doesn't even blink or move. Now, I know he's under hypnosis, as most of these people are, but is he at least a little bit concerned that, one, he may get shot since he's filming it? And again, the guy's not covering his face. Well, of course he knows he's not going to get shot because he's a government operative. And eventually this guy is just restrained and arrested peacefully. Now, I want to play for you this news clip. This is the man who was shot. I'm going to show you him now because he does an interview on TV because that's part of how this works, right? We need local witnesses on the news with duping delight. And we get the guy who didn't die, somehow surprisingly, but he's on the news to tell us his tale, as we've seen in some of the psyops that I've covered, like the Kansas City shooting, where these people pretend that they're actually shot. This guy's perfectly fine. You'd think somebody got shot in the chest from that close range at 90 years old or whatever he is in his 80s would likely not be alive, but this guy's alive, right? And I want you to watch closely during this video clip because they show him getting carried off on a stretcher after he's shot. And what is he doing? What do you think he'd be doing? I mean, I've seen people who have the flu. No, not really. But I mean, I've seen people with broken legs on stretchers before, right? And they're, oh, my leg. And oh, man, look at their hands on their head, right? We see athletes in sporting events and they get carted off, right? And there's a lot of pain. This guy was shot in the chest and he's old. What's he doing? Well, of course, he's texting. He's got his phone out, ladies and gentlemen.
Shot on Seattle's waterfront in broad daylight, and he lived. He was released from the hospital just a few days ago, and tonight he spoke exclusively with our Samantha Lomibao. She joins us live now. Samantha, you met him at his house tonight. First thing, how is he?
Well, he was just released from the hospital on Sunday, but he says he is just happy and lucky to be alive. He says he's always loved playing at this waterfront, but never thought it's a place where he'd almost lose his life.
More shock, I think, than anything else. I got hit really hard right in the chest, right here, real close.
Harold Powell tells me he's grateful to live another day after this happened about 2 weeks ago on Seattle's waterfront. Cairo 7 got this video on Tuesday where prosecutors say the suspect, 32-year-old Gregory Tim, fired a gun at Powell's chest.
Right here's a bullet hole.
Powell thought that was the end for him.
I just went to, I'm going to die, so let me call my family. The heck with everything else. That's just all I thought. I didn't worry about nothing else.
Powell, a Navy veteran who is also disabled, says it happened while he was busking on the waterfront like he has been for the past 30 years. He says the suspect walked up to him and accused him of stolen valor. So Powell offered to show him his military ID. But before he could get to it, he said it was too late.
Practice being in bad situations all my life. Especially being on a submarine, you just got to be ready not to, If you have to face that moment, you got to practice.
Tim was arrested, but Powell says he hasn't given him much thought since then.
I refuse to complain, and I'm not going to let this guy, nothing about this guy live in my mind for rent-free.
He says he's focused on himself and his family.
Move around slower and move around faster, you know? I'm just blessed, man. I can still do my thing with my family. I'm blessed.
Powell was truly in good spirits the entire time that we were talking to them. He's even visited the waterfront twice since he's been released from the hospital, once Sunday, once today. As for when he'll be back here playing music, he says that's yet to be determined. He's focused on healing.
Yeah, so he looked real wounded. I mean, what are you going to say? Adrenaline kicked in? Maybe adrenochrome? No, I'm kidding. Did adrenaline kick in? And the first thing he thought of after he was shot in the chest, he wanted to get his phone out and call his family or whatever he was doing there, FaceTime him so he could show him that he was actually shot. I mean, talk about lights, camera, action. This whole thing was so scripted. It was so staged. The way everyone responded around this guy, the way that this guy himself acted. He stepped back, he pulled out his gun, he shot the man, then he stood there and held his pose. And while he stood there and held his pose with the gun extended, all the people around him who ran were smiling like they were in a video game or something. None of them were fearing for their lives. The people who were filming it on their phones weren't fearful that they may get shot for one, filming it, because now they have full evidence and proof that they could show the police because this guy's not masked, even though I'm sure there's CCTV cameras everywhere in that square. But two, they weren't even scared. They weren't like, let me think, should I hold my phone up and film this, or should I run because I may get shot because some guy just shot some other guy for no reason whatsoever other than the fact that, you know, they were arguing over if the guy was actually in the military or not. I mean, give me a break. This is laughable beyond laughable. We've seen psyops, and then we see stuff like this. One guy holding his ears in one of the pictures, the screenshots that I've showed here. Guy's holding his ears up, right? He's like, oh, my ears. He's not going like, gun, running. He's just going, oh, my ears, please be careful, my hearing. Not dropping to the ground. I mean, it's incredible. It's incredible that people believe the news is real. But as long as they believe the news is real, this is how the government can persuade people into accepting the agendas that the government wants. Do you see how it works? Do you think conservatives would be okay with biometric surveillance? No, they wouldn't. Well, why are they okay with it now? Well, they're okay with it because they've been told that immigrants have invaded, and the only way to get rid of them is for Trump to bring in Palantir and biometrics, right? So that we can make sure they don't cross. So they go, okay, we should do it. Now they're okay with martial law being deployed because they're not calling it martial law. They're calling it just bringing in the National Guard. So they're all saying this is great. This is great because all these cities, these liberals are out of control. Let's get them out of here, right? They're cheering for this because of stories like this. Because when they see this story, the natural response from a conservative, because they tell you it's a liberal, right? It's a liberal. They say it in the title pretty much. All the conservative media says is liberal gunman, right? And then they tell you, well, he rammed a Trump tent. So now we know he's definitely a liberal, right? Because they've turned people into, just very easily identifiable. You're either Democrat or Republican. And then the rest of us who don't vote, who don't believe in the left-right paradigm, they try to pretend like we don't exist. They try to make sure we don't upload content, that we don't talk about it, because it might pull people out of the actual matrix. That's what it is, the simulated reality. And it's a simulated reality because people believe this stuff. So when somebody sees this and the alt-right media is pushing it like it's real, the response is going to be, let's get the National Guard to Seattle. We need to get them there now. And that's why they manufacture the news, to get you on board. Because if they didn't do this, people would say, why is Trump deploying the National Guard to Seattle? I don't understand. Trump is supposed to be one of us. He's supposed to be going after the NWO. But if they hear, well, the liberals are out of control, Black Lives Matters, they're doing what they want, all the stories we've heard for 4 years where they're running amok and not held accountable. So they want this. Now the conservatives aren't even realizing that they're bringing in the New World Order. They're asking for a surveillance state. They're asking for martial law. We're watching all of this stuff happen every single day, and none of them realize what they're even asking for. And the next thing you know, it's going to be too late, because when the AI infrastructure that Trump is building is complete, they'll realize, oh my goodness, we actually helped Trump build the World Economic Forum's artificial intelligence governance. So I expect to see more stories like this. This story was so bad. I mean, anybody out there who saw the raw footage, a light bulb has to go off, because even if you're completely asleep, a lot of these people love movies. They watch movies all the time, right? How many of these people see movies and are like, wow, that's a real crappy movie. That's really bad acting, right? Anybody who's seen one of these DVDs that's in a bin at 7-Eleven, nobody's ever heard of it, right? It's like, Monster. It's one I've mentioned in the past. It's the story of a murderer turns into a turd. Those types of movies. You look at the acting in it and you watch it and you cringe and you laugh. You're like, this is so bad, right? A regular person cannot watch that and tell me that that looks real. That looks like one of the worst produced psychological ops I've ever seen. Nobody was shot. It was a blank. The guy was texting on his phone. He was shot in the chest. He didn't even fall out of his wheelchair. The shooter didn't even try to run. Everybody's filming it. Everybody in the area is laughing. And that's why it's not on national news. It's only on local news. Because the people who see this on national news might start questioning if the news is even real in the first place. And while they want you to say fake news, they only want you to say it when it comes to the news that opposes your political party. See, they want you to say, ABC, CNN, that's fake news. Why? Because they want you to go to your conservative-controlled hive mind, like Fox and Newsmax. And the same with the Democrats who say Fox News is fake, right? Because they're saying stuff against Democrats and against the gays. And the other side saying stuff against Trump, so we can't watch what they're saying because they're making up lies about him. That's where it stops and starts and stops with them when it comes to fake news. That's why they created that whole side where Trump says fake news, fake news, fake news. And they say it's just an opinion. If they don't agree with the opinion, they call it fake news. But the reality is that the news itself is manufactured. It's scripted. They film this stuff out. They produce it. They choreograph it. And they air it so that you see it and then you react to it the way they want you to react. So every conservative who sees that, when they see that that guy ran over the Trump, the Trump tent. Oh, so he's anti-Trump. Oh, he's a liberal. Oh, he's going after a military veteran. Oh, well, we need to get him in this lib state. Bada bing, bada boom. That's how it works. So every one of them asked for the National Guard to get deployed there. And then we'll see more of these stories in New York, Chicago, more in Los Angeles. It'll continue in liberal states first. And then eventually we'll start seeing the National Guard deployed in conservative states. But right now the conservatives don't seem to care. And they see the feedback from all the data on the internet, and they see conservatives cheering for this. So they're full throttle, going to move forward with it because they're not calling it martial law. Conservatives are calling it justice and what's needed and cleaning up the streets. Whew. This is a psychosis, folks. You're watching it play out in real time. I thank everybody for being here. I hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families as always.